It was supposed to be a pretty boring day 3. Even with 4 picks, we thought we're going to drive down to the Novacare complex. The Eagles will draft a few players in the last 2 rounds and we'll go home. Nope. Pretty exciting day.
It was, and we were all kind of wandering in. I think when the Eagles made the trade, I think it was just me, you, and Chris and
I think
John
there were like 4
McMullen.
of
I think there
us.
were 4 of us, and we're just kind of like, getting our bagels ready and just waking up and getting settled in. And wow, here we go.
Yeah, it was a crazy day. Howie at it again, always willing to make a trade, and he did it a few times. So we thought they'd walk out of here on day 3 with a few late draft
Originally,
picks.
it was two
Yeah,
guys.
then it was 4, and
then it
then
was 4.
moved around. This is Eagle Eye Podcast. I should mention that he's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro, and by the end of the day, DeAndre Swift is an Eagle. Keely Ringo is an Eagle, and then they added a few more late round prospects. But uh, overall, this is a pretty impressive draft haul for Howie Roseman. And we know, like, sometimes you get these grades of drafts, and you're like, well, let's wait a few years.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't really know, but you look at it on paper and you go, okay, at least the process wasn't too flawed. This is an impressive haul.
It is, and I think when you look at really the 3 Georgia guys, they all got later than you would have expected them to go.
Mm-hmm.
Sidney Brown's we talked about him on yesterday. We talked to him about him Thursday, and a fun player. You got to like the haul, and I didn't. I think I said on one of the shows on Thursday that I think they have good running backs, but they have question. Everyone has a question mark. Gainwell really hasn't played that much. Hasn't had that many big games. He's really talented. Obviously, the injuries with
Penny,
the kid from Seattle, Rashad Penny, and in DeAndre Swift, you got a guy we talked about him last night, and I was like, nah. And then I started looking at how young he is, his receiving numbers, the body of work, and I was like, okay, yeah. I didn't realize he's still 23.
24.
24, just turned 24, and receiving numbers really set him apart big time. 158 catches his first 3 years is really good production, like the Eagles haven't had since Shady as a receiver. So you get him for a year and you see what happens. But all in all, from top to bottom, to get the guys they got where they got them, both through the trade and drafting players, it looks great.
It does, and we'll go through the whole draft and give some overall thoughts a little later. But DeAndre Swift, let's dive into him a little bit. 24-year-old guy, St. Joe's Prep. Howie Roseman said he was in the building as a high schooler. They know him really well.
Well, Deuce used to go see him play in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And then obviously Deuce got to coach him in the league for a little while before,
Detroit.
Just recently leaving. So, he's a really talented player. Hasn't probably lived up to the draft stock necessarily, but he has been productive at times. He's dealt with a few injuries here and there. He's a home run threat, though, and that's really fun to add a player like that in this offense. And I asked Howie when they thought he was going to be available, and it was kind of when we all thought he might be available when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th overall pick. Yeah, and he was, because Gibbs is kind of a similar player in a lot of respects, like a home run threat who can catch the ball. So DeAndre Swift was available, and Howie goes out and he gives up a 2025 4th round pick. So, I mean, he's going to have plenty of opportunity to get that pick back over the next couple of years.
And then trade it, and then get it back, and then trade it.
Pretty much. And then a 7th round pick swap. So you feel pretty good about the value there. And you bring in Swift, who's on the final year of his rookie contract, $1.77 million as a base salary this year. And overall, like, this is a really cheap running back room that, yeah, they don't have the guy. Like, Miles Sanders was the guy last year, but they have a bunch of guys who can all be a part of a pretty dynamic rotation.
Yeah, and I'm really curious how it's going to come together. Because they're all guys, and they're still all guys with question marks. I mean, DeAndre Swift has not really been a bell cow back. I mean, he's He's had one game in his career with more than 16 carries. He's had 400-yard games, but
He had a 400-yard game.
he's had 400-yard games.
Oh, okay.
But he's also had some, a ton of games where he, 4 carries, 6 carries, 8 carries. You know, Committee can work, but I'm really curious to see how it all plays out. I think Gainwell and Swift and Penny are all guys that have shown some really, really good moments, but don't really have a body of work, all three of them. So, I mean, if I had to guess now, if you had to guess who's going to have the most carries out of those guys, and you have Boston Scott, who's a nice player, goal line, Trey Sermon, we've talked about. I don't know where he fits in.
It's
now.
really tough to figure out because the injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, Penny has been the most productive in his career. He's the best pure runner of all these guys, but how do I even I don't know how to project that. If all things are equal and we assume health, which we really can, I would say Rashad Penny because I mean he's been productive as a runner, and then I think the other guys, specifically Gainwell and Swift, would give you that ability as weapons, as receivers, and they can be third down backs. So if everything is equal and everyone's healthy, I'd say Penny, but I don't know. I think it could be a situation where they ride the hot hand and kind of let it fall where it falls.
Yeah, and that was Shane Steichen's thing, riding the hot hand, and that's why Gainwell ended up being the guy at the end of the season and the postseason. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I really like Gainwell, and injuries haven't really been a problem with him. He just was behind Miles for most of his career, really, till the last, or when Miles was hurt, he would get a few more carries. But it's an interesting group. There's a lot of talent, but there's no guy that you're like, all right, this guy is going to be great.
Yeah, and it's kind of a low risk move to get Swift because you're giving up a day 3 pick in 2 years.
Yeah,
I mean, to get a guy who knows, like he could be the missing piece on a Super Bowl team. You don't know. And if he becomes that, like, yeah, give up the day 3 pick.
Well, all these guys. I mean, Gainwell was a 5. Boston Scott was a waiver claim from the Saints, I think, or practice squad signee. Penny is a minimum wage guy, budget contract, and Swift's barely making any money, so relatively. The whole room combined cap is probably $5 million.
Yeah, probably under that.
Yeah. Well, if you
around there,
if you add the couple minimum wage guys, who's a kid from Oklahoma, got to add his.
Oh yeah,
he'll get you over $5 million. I can't think of his name.
Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah. Or Brooks Kennedy.
Yeah, either.
Brooks Kennedy sounds more like a tennis player from like Cornell.
No, I was thinking he's the accountant.
Brooks Kennedy?
Yeah.
He's a tennis player from Cornell.
Okay. You know what? That might be better. Tennis player from Cornell.
But you switch it around. It's he's a running back.
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Boston Scott has the highest salary of those running backs this year.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's at over 1.8. Swift's at 1.77. It's a good move by Howie. It is. And like getting that player in this offense is different because you have all of the zone read stuff, you have the RPO game, and he's just so quick. Like he can take it to the house. Having Jalen Hurts with him is exciting, and it could give him a chance to earn some money too. I bet he's pretty excited today. I bet he was a little annoyed on Thursday when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, but now he's on a team where if things work out, he can earn himself some money.
Yeah, relatively speaking, as running backs do.
Well, yeah, he's not gonna.
Miles got a nice contract. It's a fun group, and we'll see how it all shakes out. And this is really the way the Eagles have handled the running back position. I mean, like, Super Bowl season, it was an older veteran, LeGarrette Blount, at the end of his career. Ajay comes in a trade. Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement was undrafted, and you win a Super Bowl. It's just kind of cobble the thing together. Don't spend any money and Go play football.
Yeah, and look, that's why, as much fun as it was to talk about Bijan Robinson for a few months, it was always very, very unlikely because this is their MO. This is the way they do it. And we thought there was a chance they'd add a running back, a pretty good chance. I thought they kind of needed to.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a draft pick. And we
Right.
went through the names. Like, I don't need to go through them again, but we talked about all those guys that we thought maybe a day 2, day 3 pick would make a lot of sense. And it ends up being through a trade, but it's the same idea. It's just a guy who is talented, at least who's proven himself in the league. So you there's higher baseline with Swift, and I think it could really work out.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch. You know what Swift and Rashad Penny have in common?
They're running backs.
That is true. They've both had a 50-yard run against the Eagles in their career.
Yeah, and I mean that game against the Eagles in Week 1 last year for Swift was the best game of his career. 144 yards, a touchdown. They couldn't stop him.
Yeah, he had he had 3 catches for 31 yards as well. A touchdown. He didn't score on the 50-yarder. I think he scored on a short run. Only had 15 carries in that game. They kept throwing, which I think helped the Eagles.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but that was a scary game. Yeah. Who was the last guy to rush for 144 yards against like guys who've had big games against the Eagles who come and join the Eagles? That'd be a good story.
Okay.
I'll work on that one.
He reunites with Olamide Zaccheaus here.
Yeah.
Teammates of St. Joe's Prep. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that move. Low risk, high reward. Like a lot of these moves, how he's made, and they're not all going to work out. They're not all going to work out, and they know that. That's part of the calculus. Is
And
like,
when they don't,
yeah,
no harm
that's
done.
fine. If a few of them work out, he looks pretty smart.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Should we move on a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that.
Keely Ringo, and this was the trade you were talking about at the top of the show. We show up at the NovaCare complex expecting to hang out for a little bit, and all of a sudden they have the 3rd pick. They trade up. 3 trades, teams jockeying for a position at the top of day 3. There was
trades before the draft started.
Yeah, there was talent. There was talent left. There were a couple of guys who we thought were possibilities in the first round. Keely Ringo was one of them. Another one was Adebare from Northwestern, who went a little bit later in the round. But one of those guys we thought, yeah, he's worth that. It's rare for Howie to trade a future pick, a future day 2 pick to do this. And it tells you what they thought of Keely Ringo because he's trading a 3rd round pick next year. That's something that's pretty rare for him to do.
Right. And they will get another 3 as a comp pick. He said something really interesting. He said our valuation of Ringo was higher than our valuation of that pick and the player we would have gotten with that pick next year, which is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. So like they I'm assuming they think they're going to be pretty good this year. So that probably means it was they had an either a high 3rd round pick or a 2nd round grade.
Right. Exactly. And
a lot of do the move, like, because I'm sure that's happened before and you don't jump. He was probably, I'm guessing, probably a 2nd round grade on him.
Yeah, I would think so. A lot of people did.
Yeah, he was a guy who was a popular mock draft pick, and this is media. I don't know what the teams thought of him, but the traits are there. I mean, he's a tall, big corner with, I mean, just the size, speed alone is really intriguing. And there are some people who think maybe he has safety in his future, but let's see him at corner first. Let's give him that opportunity. And he doesn't have to play right away, which is good because he's still really young. So you bring him in, you let him sit behind Slay and Bradbury for a year. You let him be a backup, maybe with Greedy Williams and Zach McPherson, and then maybe you have a future starter on your hands if you develop him the right way.
Yeah, I think that's the thinking, and there's no rush, there's no hurry. If you draft a corner in the 1st round, you pretty much got to play him, at least by year 2. I mean, really, he's got to have a role in year 1 and be start. Now you get him in the 4th round, top of the 4th round. You don't have that pressure. Just take your time, learn the defense, get comfortable, soak in as much as you can from the veterans, and Maybe he'll get some reps late in games if they have a big lead, and see what you have.
He doesn't turn 21 until June 27th.
He's so young. Yeah.
And we've seen the Eagles do this before, drafting players like, man, he's young. And that matters. We know age matters to Howie.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing that matters, but like this is part of their when they're figuring out what they're doing. And you look at a guy who doesn't turn 21 until the summer. It's pretty crazy.
It is. When I was 20, yeah, I don't even know where I was. I guess I was a freshman in college. But I took a year off after high school.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I worked in a record store, Record World in White Plains, New York.
Was that a choice?
Yeah, it was a choice. Yeah. Actually, Ohio Wesleyan had like a deferred enrollment program. So I got accepted and I put it off for a year. And because I just needed a break. I wanted to work. I wanted to go to a lot of concerts. We got a lot of backstage passes and stuff.
That's cool.
Got to hang out with Boston. Got to hang out with
Boston Scott was there?
Got to hang out with Tom Schultz and those guys. Boston at Nassau Coliseum. Marshall
cool.
Tucker Band.
I always kind of wished I took a year.
I hang out. I saw the Kinks in Tarrytown, New York. Yeah, it was. I recommend it for it just felt right. And then by the time I got to college, like I had all the partying like out of my system, and I was like, let's get to work.
Okay.
I mean, not all the party. Well, anyway.
Yeah, he's a monster. 6'2", 207, 4.36 40. Like right there, that's a really good start. And then all the other measurables.
And by the way, he went to Georgia. We didn't mention that.
Yeah, well, I felt like that we didn't need to. Everyone knows that. He went to Georgia. DeAndre Swift went to Georgia. Everyone went to Georgia. It's kind of funny, and Howie knows the jokes are coming. They're here. I had them taking Uga, the mascot, in the 6th round. So, look, if you're going to do it, you might as well take him from a good team.
He had a really good quote about it. He said, I know the jokes are coming, but what would be like, it would be worse if we didn't take a good player who we had rated as the best player there because he went to the same school as someone else we drafted. Like that would be really silly. And he's right. So, I mean, they were pretty funny on TV, when they made one of the trades. Well, the Eagles have traded out of 62. Apparently, there are no Georgia players available.
Yeah, it's easy. It's low hanging fruit, and we all were happy to pluck it from the trade.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, these are all like none of them are reaches. They're all. I mean, we thought
they're the opposite.
Nolan Smith could have gone a lot earlier. Certainly, Ringo could have gone earlier.
The three, you're right. The 3 Georgia players they took went later than they were expected to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of expected Carter to go in that 7 to 9 range.
Well, sure. I mean,
but
based on their talent.
Originally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think originally, no.
Yeah.
And the same with Nakobe.
Mm-hmm.
No, Nakobe, I mean, we thought he was going a lot earlier.
Yeah, Jordan Davis might be the only one
where he's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's fascinating.
It is.
Ringo, though, I mean, he needs to get some work, and I thought it was interesting. We heard some good things about DK McDonald from these prospects.
Yeah.
He's new as the defensive backs coach. He was the assistant under Denard Wilson, but he's a guy that they really did think a lot of, and Nick Sirianni's known him for a long time. I think that was a logical promotion.
Yeah, it was. And not a surprising one. We kind of thought it was coming. You just don't know. We didn't find out until it would have been funny if we found out from these guys. But Keeley said he really pushed him when he met with him, and he liked that.
Yeah, he kind of challenged him.
Yeah.
And Keeley said he felt like he had the answers, and he thinks playing
confident kid.
Yeah, he was very confident playing both. Both defensive backs they drafted, oozing confidence, and that's number one trait you want in a DB is confidence,
especially a corner.
Yeah, they both seem to have that. And you're right. Keeley said being at Georgia and having that experience kind of prepared him for everything McDonald threw at him, and he thinks that's part of the reason they drafted him was because he came away so impressed from that meeting. He's a big dude. 20 what you got no you're 207 pounds. You have no business running a 4.36.
Yeah.
That's
I
insane.
I mean, you never know how it's going to go, like you said in the open, but I could really see a few years from now sitting here doing a podcast saying, "Can you believe they got Ringo in the fourth round?"
Yeah, it has that feel, and there were some theories out there, some reports about why he fell. There were some character stuff that maybe he wasn't as mature or didn't put in the work, and then there were some reports about his shoulder, and he did have shoulder surgery several years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, Howie Roseman brought it up on his own because he heard that. I think it was Ian Rappaport brought those up on NFL Network, and it tells you what they're listening to in the building, but Howie said he got out in front of it and said, no concern with medicals, no concern with character. Uh, and if that's true,
Work ethic, I think you mentioned.
work
No
ethic,
concern.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if that's true, and they might have thought differently about him than other teams, that happens sometimes, and it could really work out for them, or it could hurt them if their evaluation was wrong.
But then again, it's a fourth round pick, so
yeah. Well, yeah. It's kind of like a third round pick.
Yeah.
But
it's a fourth round
pick. Sure, but they used the third round pick to get him.
I understand that.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh.
Let's talk about Tanner McKee.
Before we do that,
yes,
I want to tell you about Rivers. If we could just find it real quick, I will tell you about Rivers. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Tanner McKee. Not the profile. We thought, hey, maybe there's a chance they draft a quarterback, and I thought that chance increased when they added day 3 picks.
Right.
He's not the profile I was expecting.
No.
He's a tall pocket passer.
Yeah. He's a project. He's different. I asked him that because he's like minus 90 rushing yards last year, which is I know sacks count as but he had, I think it was 120 rushing yards and then like 210 sack yards, but he's not a runner. And it was interesting to hear him talk about it. He said it's something he'd like to, I understand I have to learn, how to run that stuff. And he wants to learn, he's around 2 guys who've been running RPO as well as anyone, and I don't, it's not a real natural thing for a guy like him to learn, but that's why he's here. You're getting a guy who doesn't, when you draft a guy where they drafted him, you're not going to get a guy who's got, full arsenal.
Well, that's the thing. There were players there, maybe not, there were around that range where had a little more dual threat ability, which tells you they really like the player.
Yeah, and I mean, he could spin it. I mean, he's got it. Nobody questions his arm. He's accurate. He didn't have a whole lot around him. They weren't very good. Didn't throw a lot of touchdowns, but it's to get him where they got him. Nothing to lose.
Yeah, he was the second to last quarterback drafted. The guy after him, Max Duggan, does have a little bit more of a dual threat, but smaller. Probably not the same passer. Dorian Thompson-Robinson went in the 5th round in the Eagles' dead zone. He was a guy I thought made sense because of the profile. And look, based on what they did getting Marcus Mariota and talking about that was something they wanted, I was a little surprised to see them go out and get a pure pocket passer. But I think it kind of informs you that they feel their offense can be effective with a different style quarterback. It would be a slightly different offense, obviously, but it tells you that they still have some faith in the offense as something that's not predicated on having a running quarterback. Like there are some bare bones to this offense that can run with a pocket guy.
Didn't Keely Ringo pick off Duggan in the championship game? Pretty sure did. Anyway, Yeah, and they talked about how much they still like Ian Book, who's he was 3 last year behind Jalen and Minshew. He's more of a runner. He was a big runner with the Saints preseason.
Yeah, I can't like him that much.
No,
I
but
mean,
but I mean, I think what he's saying is like nothing's settled here. Don't make any assumptions.
yeah, 6th-round pick. We've seen a 5th-round pick at QB not work out.
Yeah.
So no guarantees, but I think they'd probably prefer McKee to win that 3rd-string job.
You would think anytime you have a draft pick. They've had some really bad training camp quarterbacks.
Yeah, the one I was referring to was Clayton Thorson.
Yeah, I don't say his name.
Yeah.
But
I'll never forget. We asked Doug Peterson about Clayton, and the first thing he said was, well, "He's tall." Oh, that's not.
Do you remember one day at training camp where he completed a few passes, and it was like the 5th day, and he had been awful the first like 4 days. So on the 5th day, he completed a few passes, and he threw a touchdown. And we all interviewed him, and he's like, "Yeah, it was a big step forward for me." And and then the next day he threw like 9 interceptions. It was downhill from there. But you think of like Carson Strong and Hackenberg,
Mm-hmm.
Thorson. They've had some.
Yeah, they've had some stinkers out there.
Yeah. Andy Hall. Andy Hall's the last quarterback they drafted this late, 2004, out of Delaware.
Okay, wow.
Who I believe was thrown to Brett Veach in college. Right?
Sure.
Didn't Brett Veach go to Delaware? Anyway.
No, he's a little older, McKee. He's 23, just turned 23 actually on Thursday. Happy birthday, Tanner.
Thursday was his birthday. Did a mission.
Yeah, I mean, he's not an old. There are some prospects who are 24 in this class, but relatively little experience.
But for a quarterback, I wouldn't worry about that.
Not worried about the age as much as the lack of experience.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Spent 2 years in Brazil on a mission.
Yeah. Which is great life experience.
Yeah.
But it starts
helping you.
Yeah, it starts your clock a little later.
But for him, it was after high school. Like Britton Covey, I think it was in the middle of college, right? It was a couple years in. He came back. They were actually in South America at the same time. Covey was in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Chile's the restaurant. But it's always interesting when you draft a quarterback. They don't do it all that often.
Not surprised though. I thought this was a possibility.
Yeah, and we said that I think we said that on something or other yesterday, where we kind of expected a quarterback at some point. So that'll be fun. He's a big dude. Was he 6'6"?
6'6", 230.
230. And he's got a big arm, and that's something that you can't teach. So
yeah, Stanford kid, so should be smart, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah. They've gotten some good players out of Stanford.
Yeah,
Zach Ertz did okay. They've gotten some not so good players out of Stanford. We won't talk about them.
Yeah. And then last pick, 7th round.
Casey Toohill, Stanford. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like you're just trying to name guys who played here a long time ago.
It was 3 years ago he played here.
7th round pick, 249 overall. They did have 248 for a little bit today. They end up with 249, 7th round pick. Moro Ojomo from Texas. Interior lineman, most likely. Probably can play a little bit on the edge. Has some juice to him. Not crazy numbers in college, but a 3-year starter for the Longhorns.
Got some length.
He does. 34.5-inch arms for a guy who's 6'2".
Yeah. Interesting player. Probably practice squad guy.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where they play him, how the roster shakes out. They did cut Big Marvin Wilson.
Marvin Wilson is gone.
So maybe
had a great interview with him in Cleveland.
I like Big Marv.
Yeah. Good kid. Yeah, I like Marv. I wish him well. But yeah, he's his traits show that he should be a pretty good rusher from the inside.
Yeah, I think so. I was kind of expecting the Eagles to add like a nose tackle in this draft, and they didn't. I thought there weren't a ton of options
Yeah.
late in the draft, but I thought there was a chance they'd try to add one, and they end up kind of adding a smaller.
Yeah, I would think maybe a couple undrafted.
Maybe I mean
No.
they have Noah Ellis too, who
Yeah.
didn't really play at all
Yeah.
last year. He has that body type, so
How
maybe
big is he?
he's a big dude. I can look him up. He's large. He's a zero.
Okay. Dave's now looking up how much Noah Ellis weighs because that's what we do.
Eagles list him 6'4", 346.
Wow. Yeah,
Large human.
he is. He is.
I didn't know he was 346.
Wow. Yeah.
Good.
So, I mean, they kept him around.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe get some run at it.
A Jomo interesting story, by the way. Born in Nigeria, moved to the States when he was 7. Eventually, his family settled in the Houston area, went to Katy High School. Uh, but he actually got to Texas. I had to check this. I didn't know this when Harry Roseman said it. He did. He enrolled at Texas when he was 16.
How about that?
We haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. I want to find out about that. That's crazy.
Indy Kalu was from Nigeria and wound up in Houston.
Mm-hmm. He's still there.
Is he?
And he does radio in Houston.
Great guy.
Yeah, good dude.
Great guy. 5th round pick. Sorry.
This is you're just trying to find any connection.
Well, it's two guys from Nigeria that are defensive linemen that have connections to Houston and the Eagles. So, it's a natural. It's how my brain works.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. I'd look. He's a late 7th round pick, so you never know. But has the traits, and we've seen the Eagles have plenty of undrafted guys make the team, so he has a shot to make the roster. He's got a chance in training camp to prove himself. Interesting room now. I mean, they were lacking some depth there. We talked about that before this draft. They had Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, and then
Marvin.
It dropped off.
Yeah.
Marlon Tuipulotu still there. Noah Ellis, Marvin, but yeah, you adding Jalen Carter, adding a Jomo, and maybe another one or two undrafted. I think that'll give them some better depth there.
Yeah, I wonder if they're high on Noah Ellis. I didn't realize how big he was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough thing to say. He didn't do anything last year.
No, he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
What was his injury? You remember?
Not offhand.
Yeah, I mean, he was always around.
Well, they kept him around. I mean,
yeah,
probably for a reason.
Yeah. So interesting. I tell you what, I don't know if I feel like it was a kind of a no-brainer draft for them. Like there were no reaches. Not all these guys are going to be players, but they all make sense where they took them.
Yeah, want to go through the list real quick?
Yeah.
Just remind people. First pick in the draft, 9th overall, Jalen Carter from Georgia. Good player. Obviously, there's some maturity concerns, but the player is a stud, and if they're able to maximize him, it's going to be a great pick.
Yeah, he'll be. It's gonna be interesting how the reps are spread out, like how much Fletch plays this year. I would think even less than last year, and still, I think that'll be good for him. But I mean, I think this kid's going to play a lot.
Starter immediately?
Yeah,
has to be. Right next to Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox.
Yeah,
and then Milton's your guy off the bench.
Yeah,
and that's not a knock on Milton. I think he can play.
Yeah. Oh, he can. We've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then 30th overall pick, they sat there. That had to be a tough wait. Because you're thinking, this guy's going to go, right?
We thought Dallas. I didn't think he was going to get past Dallas.
Well, did I tell you what happened? I don't know if
you told me. I think you told it on the podcast.
Did I tell on the pod? Okay. Yeah, we thought he was going to Dallas. Nolan Smith at 30. I like that. And look, if that's all they did in this draft, I think Eagles fans would feel pretty good about it. Honestly,
yeah.
Those feel like home run picks, and that's kind of the way you judge a draft. A lot of times, is just on the first round pick, and they have two of them, and two players we think are going to be really good.
I mean, this is a Super Bowl team adding this talent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is the number 2 defense in the league by 15 yards, adding, adding Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. You know, a defense that had 70 sacks last year. And obviously they lost some key guys from that defense, TJ and Hargrave, Kaiser, but
Epps and CJ.
Epps and CJ, obviously. So they lost some guys, but man, they added some guys.
They did. So a really good start. Day 2, more on the boring side. I think it came back to earth in terms of like excitement level.
I don't know. Sidney Brown's that's an exciting pick for me.
Okay.
I mean, anytime you draft a lineman, it's boring.
Yeah, it's boring. Tyler Steen, but that's what they do. And I thought it was interesting how he said we wanted to just send a message that this is what we do. And when it comes down to another player in a lineman, guess what we're doing?
That was a good quote. That was my question, I think.
Yeah.
That was a good quote. Really, I mean, for him to be that open about, look, if it's even, we're taking a lineman.
It's funny that like they've always said that. And it always makes me laugh because it's in this sport where it's all about competitive advantage and the Eagles will hide who the backup long snapper is from us.
Right.
You have the general manager of the football team shouting it from the rooftops every chance he gets that, yes, we are going to we're going to draft every lineman we can and develop them. It's just so funny how open they are with the biggest philosophy the organization has.
That's true. That's funny.
Yeah. Tyler Steen.
And he's not making that up, by the way. They really wouldn't tell us who the backup long snapper was.
Yeah, no, you're competitive advantage. Yeah. Tyler Steen, who we mentioned, the guard. They list him as a guard, has tackle background. I tend to think he's probably not going to win the right guard job. I think it's probably going to be Cam Jurgens, but that's okay. He's going to be a valuable backup at multiple positions if he doesn't win that job, and then possibly a starter next year at guard.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll give him reps with the ones.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would guess no.
Never.
Maybe if
Kelsey will probably get the vet days.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. I just didn't know how to phrase it.
Yeah.
Kelsey's got a vet day. Cam gets reps inside, which will be valuable for him.
And it's a way to get a peek at him without hurting Cam.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah. I like that. And you get a chance to view the future a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hey, look, if Steen is like clearly the better player, which I find unlikely given I think Cam's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And he's had a year in the NFL with Stout. But look, if Steen is like clearly better than him, I think they play him.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think that'll happen though.
Yeah. Sidney,
I think what you just said is really big. I think Stoutland takes some getting used to and learning. I mean,
that's the nicest way to put it.
Learning exactly what he's looking for isn't easy, and it doesn't happen quickly.
Yeah. And I do want to point out, like, Stout wanted Tyler Steen. I don't know. I don't have information on that.
Right.
But I know they don't draft him if
Absolutely.
Stout and they really value his value, like maybe more than any coach in the league.
Yes.
Like any position. Like they listen to Stout when they're going through this evaluation process.
Yeah. I was talking about I think it was last time we talked to whatever that was about. He was trying to leave the building and take one of his kids to a little league game or something. And Stout was like, just come here. Watch 20 snaps. Just come here. Why you got to see this kid. Watch 20 snaps. He's like, Stout, I got to go. No, just 20 snaps. How do you say no?
Yeah, you can't.
I'd love to watch film with Stout.
Yeah. So we'll see on that. But yeah, Stout wanted him. They got him. That's solid. And then Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois. Super traits. Just super trades. We talked about the Red Star in the last pod and why they liked him so much. Maybe drafted a little high, like when you looked at some of the rankings, but it feels nitpicky.
Yeah.
Now I am curious to see what it looks like on the field. Like, how do you think they line up this year at safety? I think we'll get a chance to play.
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
That's a really high third-round pick.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty unsettled position. So you have him, you have Terrell Edmonds, you have Reed Blankenship. I think it'll be some combination of those three. Maybe Avonte Maddox. mixed in if they want to play him at both spots at times.
Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantees Terrell Edmonds is even on the team.
True.
So
and like Edmonds and Brown are both kind of considered like box safeties.
Yeah.
So
well, so was Reed. I mean, although he was surprisingly good in coverage.
Yeah, well, Reed showed he could play the post though last year.
Oh yeah.
So and
but
look,
he wasn't supposed to be able to.
Yeah, and Sidney Brown talked about that.
Yeah.
A little bit. He talked about like, no, like that was my role at Illinois. I can do more than that. And we'll see. That was part of their evaluation process with him at the Senior Bowl, was seeing him in other roles, and playing the post was a part of that. So maybe they think he can do that. And who knows, maybe it's Edmonds and Brown at times.
It could be. My guess is that they start out with Blankenship and Edmonds, and at some point Sidney Brown's going to be starting.
Yeah, and they're going to want that. Like the organization is going to want that. Yeah. They're going to want their high third round pick to play over a guy who they just gave a cheapo deal to.
Yeah, and I think by the bye week, not that we know when the bye week is, but by the bye week, it's going to be Reed and Brown.
Or who knows? I mean, if Edmonds plays well, you're not going to take it from him. But
he's not awful. But I just think the future is the two of them.
I agree with that.
Plus, I mean, Edmonds is on a 1-year deal, so you don't want to. I mean, ideally, you want the two guys who are going to be here.
Yeah, he plays well. Now you got to pay him.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
It's kind of the problem with like drafting a running back too. He plays well. Now you got to pay him.
Yeah,
and you're not going to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we talked about the other picks.
Yeah,
I did want
to McKeon.
I did want to bring up one of my favorite Howie things from today. He traded 2 7th-round picks, number 230 and 248, for 191 in the 6th round. And then before he makes that pick, 191, he trades it for a 5th-round pick next year. So he turned 2 7s into a 5.
That's what he does.
It's such a Howie move, because it's a series of trades, and something tells me he was always thinking about flipping. But he had the foresight to do it, and it's a move that like a lot of GMs don't even bother doing it.
Yeah, and then that 5 could, but in 3 years that 5 could be a 2.
Yeah,
and you get
just keep moving.
Yeah, the 5 just keeps and I think he's better than anybody in understanding the value of future picks and the value of combined picks and how to maximize their value, whether it's for other picks or a player. His mind is just wired that way.
Yeah, and then they're still probably going to end up with 10 picks next year.
Yeah. Well, who knows? And I was thinking, like, before every draft, we're like, all right, they have this pick, this pick, this pick. We should even do that, because they're going to use like 2 of those picks in that spot.
Yeah, but you got to know what they're starting with.
I guess you do, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you got to know what's in the wallet before he starts trading. I don't know. Got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
It's a fun draft.
I just wanted to do real quick. I just want to do like a 20-minute wrap up of the Penn relays. So we'll start with Thursdays.
You get 35 seconds.
The 4x1 Dom.
Well, we can mention your guy took the hurdles.
Oh, Devin Allen, my guy. Bad conditions. It was wet and cold. He won by 4 1,000ths of a second.
A little
dude from Brazil. That's a small margin. He was way back over the last hurdle. He won.
I watched it. Yeah, he closed ground.
Yeah, he closed ground.
Is that what they say?
Sure. It was his first race since he got DQ'd at the World Championships in Eugene. It was funny because he didn't know they were interviewing him after the race, and he didn't know about the Swift trade.
Oh, that's fun.
So
what did he say?
The woman interviewing him told him he was fired up. He's like, "Yeah, we have so much talent. We're going back and all this stuff." But where's he fit in? You think he's got a chance to make the 53?
No.
They didn't. Yeah, didn't draft a receiver.
They didn't, and I thought that was a possibility. They did pick one up in undrafted. And look, I don't want to get into the undrafted guys just yet because I only have a few of the names. We'll get into that next week. But it was a spot where I thought they could position. I thought they might draft because they don't have a lot of bodies there.
Yeah, they don't
right now.
They will now. What's the roster at?
Okay, so they came into the draft with 71 players. They cut Big Marv. They're down to 70. They drafted 7 players up to 77. Got DeAndre Swift. 78. They have 12 spots.
So you can have 90. So they'll sign 12 undrafted rookies unless there's other.
Or
moves.
they can maybe they'll cut someone else to if they need.
I said
yeah,
unless there's other moves.
Yeah.
But that's what they have room for, and that's a good number.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about what you want, I think. And they've been so aggressive in recent years. I'm curious to see if that continues this year.
Yeah, I would think it will.
Yeah, probably that's the way they do business.
Yeah,
fun draft.
It was a fun draft. I think it was a good draft. You never really know for a couple of years. That's why we don't do great. I don't do grades.
A plus 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 plus.
Because you can look back at some of the drafts and I mean, everyone thinks they're all like everyone's going to get an A except the Lions. Although Lions bounce back a little. They bounce back.
Maybe it like grading the draft is silly, but you look at the process. I feel like that a good process.
I agree. I think there's nothing. There was no pick that you're like, what are they doing there? That just doesn't make sense from a value standpoint. Yeah.
There's always nitpicky things you can say. Maybe this guy's a little too high, or they're another position there. But overall, I think there's sense behind everything they did.
Got some talent.
Yeah, and a lot of Georgia.
A lot of SEC.
Yeah. Thanks everyone.
10 of their last 17 picks over the last 4 drafts in the first 4 rounds are from the SEC.
Yeah. Hey,
includes Jack Driscoll.
It does. He finished up at Auburn.
He did.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll do this again soon.
We will. Thanks everyone for listening the last few days. We know it's a fun time of the year. We grind these out, but we appreciate everyone listening. And if you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well. That's it. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We will talk to you soon.